The scent of rain-soaked concrete and expensive perfume filled the car, a strange cocktail that was uniquely hers. I sat in the back seat, my knees pressed tightly together, clutching a tablet filled with talking points I no longer needed. Outside, the city blurred into streaks of gold and gray. And next to me, Isabella Thorne, my boss, the formidable philanthropist whose name graced hospital wings and charity gallows, was quietly, methodically, trying to wipe a smudge of chocolate from the sleeve of my simple black dress. It was this incongruity that held me captive. Her fingers, usually poised over a keyboard or elegantly holding a champagne flute, were now dabbing a linen napkin with mineral water, her brow furrowed in concentration. The same hands that signed million-dollar checks for humanitarian aid were focused on a $5 stain on her junior assistant's dress. She had insisted, after I'd nervously fumbled a canopy at the evening's fundraiser, a tiny rebellion of my clumsy body against the pristine world she inhabited. "Hold still, Clara," she had murmured, her voice a low thrum that vibrated in the enclosed space of the town car. Now, in the dim light, she worked with a quiet intensity that made my heart thump a wild, irregular rhythm against my ribs. This was the woman I saw in boardrooms, all sharp intellect and unwavering resolve, the woman the world knew as a titan of charitable enterprise. But here, in this intimate twilight, she was just a woman focused on a simple, futile task, her usual aura of untouchable grace replaced by a tangible, grounding warmth. She finally looked up, her eyes, the color of rich espresso, meeting mine. The city lights flashed across her face, illuminating the faint laugh lines around her eyes that her public smile never quite reached. A tiny, almost imperceptible shake of her head, a silent communication that said, "It's all right. It's just a dress." In that look, the professional boundary we had so carefully maintained for a year didn't just blur, it evaporated. The car was no longer a mode of transport. It was a universe of two, hurtling through the night, and I was falling, helplessly, into the unexpected gravity of the woman beside me. Underscore 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 underscore. My life before Isabella was a study in beige, a small apartment with a leaky faucet, a mountain of student debt, and a career path that felt more like a narrow, dimly lit corridor than a road with a view. Getting the job as her assistant at the Thorne Foundation was like being abruptly pulled from a monochrome film and thrust into a world of vibrant, overwhelming color. She was a whirlwind, a force of nature in tailored sheath dresses and stilettos that clicked with purpose on the polished concrete floors of our office. For the first 6 months, I was terrified of her. I memorized her coffee order, black, 1 sugar, served at precisely 10:15 a.m., the specific brand of pen she preferred, the exact tone to use when declining a meeting request. I was a ghost in the machinery of her empire, efficient and silent. But ghosts notice things. I noticed how her stern expression would soften when she read a success story from one of the youth shelters we funded. I saw the way she'd rub her temples after a long call with a stubborn donor, a flicker of weariness she would never let anyone else see. The first crack in my fear appeared during a late night, 3 months in. We were preparing for the annual gala, and I was drowning in seating charts. She emerged from her office, having changed from her heels into a pair of soft leather loafers I'd never seen before. She brought me a cup of tea, not coffee. Its floral scent a surprise. "You look pale," she'd stated, placing the cup on my desk. No small talk, just an observation and an action. Then she pulled up a chair and started helping, her knowledge of donor egos and alliances far surpassing the spreadsheet. We worked in silence for an hour, a comfortable, focused quiet that felt more like companionship than a hierarchy. That became our pattern. The late nights, the shared, silent meals ordered in, the unspoken understanding that the work we did, the good it achieved, was a language we both spoke fluently. I started to see the philanthropist not as a title, but as a soul. Her generosity wasn't a performance, it was a compulsion, a deep-seated need to mend the broken parts of the world. I saw the weight it placed on her, the way the suffering she sought to alleviate sometimes dimmed the light behind her eyes. The first time our hands brushed, it was an accident. Passing a folder in her office, my fingertips grazed the inside of her wrist. A jolt, sharp and electric, shot up my arm. I flinched back as if burned, my face flooding with heat. She didn't react, merely continued her sentence, but her eyes held mine for a fraction of a second too long, and I saw a flicker of something, surprise, recognition, before the professional mask slid neatly back into place. From then on, I became hyper-aware of her proximity. The scent of her perfume, sandalwood and orange blossom, would linger in my space long after she'd left a room. I found myself memorizing the curve of her neck when she looked down at her phone, the way she'd tuck a strand of her dark, chin-length bob behind her ear when she was thinking. The professional admiration began to curdle into a dangerous, thrilling attraction. It was a secret I carried with me, a live wire humming just beneath my skin, threatening to spark at any moment. Underscore 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 the turning point arrived not with a bang, but with a quiet, desperate phone call. We were in upstate New York, visiting a new community arts center the foundation was sponsoring. The day had been long, filled with handshakes and hopeful faces, and a storm had rolled in, trapping us for the night in a quaint, empty inn she kept for such occasions. The call came for her late. I was in my room, reviewing the next day's schedule, when I heard her voice through the wall, low and strained. I couldn't make out the words, only the cadence of distress. An hour later, a soft knock landed on my door. I opened it to find her standing there, silhouetted by the hallway light. She had changed into sweatpants and an old university sweatshirt, a version of Isabella Thorne I never knew existed. Her eyes were red-rimmed. "Clara," she said, her voice rough. Would you mind some company? I don't think I should be alone right now." I wordlessly stepped aside. She moved past me into the room, wrapping her arms around herself. She didn't cry. She just stood in the middle of the rustic room, looking lost. I guided her to the small sofa by the cold fireplace, my hand a steady pressure on her back. She sank into the cushions, and the story tumbled out in a hushed, broken monologue. The phone call had been about her sister, a spiral of addiction and bad choices, a part of her life she kept fiercely private. The philanthropist who saved strangers couldn't save her own flesh and blood. I send money. I find the best rehab centers. But I can't fix her, she whispered, staring at her hands. All the strategy, all the influence, it's useless. I feel so utterly powerless. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't speak. I simply reached out and took her hand. It was cold. I enveloped it in both of mine, trying to warm it, to anchor her. She looked down at our joined hands, then up at me. The vulnerability in her eyes was a physical ache in my chest. Without a word, I pulled her into my arms. She came willingly, her body folding against mine, her head finding a space on my shoulder. She was trembling. I held her, one hand stroking her back, the other cradling her head. We stayed like that for a long time, as the storm raged outside, two women clinging to each other in the dark. The hierarchy was gone. There was no boss, no assistant. There was just Isabella and Clara, and the profound, silent understanding passing between us. Quick reminder, if you're enjoying this story, hit subscribe to Sapphic Tales so you don't miss the next one. Underscore 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 underscore. The drive back to the city the next day was steeped in a new unspoken tension. The professional boundary had been not just crossed, but obliterated. We didn't speak of the night before, but it hung in the air between us, a shared secret that charged every glance, every movement. In the office, she was once again Miss Thorne, but now her commands were softer, her eyes seeking mine out in meetings, holding for a second too long. The first kiss happened a week later in her office after hours. The sun was setting, casting long, amber shadows across the room. I was standing by the window, reporting on the day's outcomes, when I felt her come to stand behind me. Her hands came to rest on my shoulders, her touch firm and sure. I froze, my breath catching. She gently turned me around. Her expression was a question. My rapid heartbeat was the answer. She leaned in, her movement agonizingly slow, giving me every opportunity to pull away. I didn't. Her lips met mine, and the world narrowed to that single point of contact. It was not a kiss of conquest, but of discovery. Soft, searching, achingly tender. It tasted of mint tea and a longing so deep it felt bottomless. My hands came up to clutch the lapels of her blazer, holding on as my knees went weak. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing heavily. She rested her forehead against mine, her eyes closed, her thumbs stroking my cheeks. No words were needed. Everything had been said. The second kiss was in a dusty archive room at the Foundation, surrounded by the ghosts of past projects. It was hungry, desperate, a collision of suppressed desire. Her back was against a shelf of old ledgers, my body pressed against hers, my hands tangled in her hair. It was a silent confession of everything we couldn't say out loud. We began a delicate, dangerous dance. Stolen moments became the currency of my life. A brush of her hand under the conference table during a donor meeting, her lips on the nape of my neck in the elevator, a fleeting, secret caress before the door slid open. I'd find notes in her elegant script tucked into my daily planner. Your smile today undid me. We were building a world within a world, a beautiful, fragile castle made of glass, knowing one wrong move could send it shattering down around us. Underscore 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 underscore. The fear was a constant, low hum in the background of my bliss. Every knowing look from a colleague sent a jolt of paranoia through me. Every time her phone buzzed with a call from the board, my stomach would clench. I lived in a state of heightened awareness, addicted to the secret joy and terrified of its exposure. The external obstacles were obvious: the scandal, the potential damage to the foundation, the inevitable accusations of favoritism or coercion. But the internal conflict was worse. The ghost of her power over me, my professional future, haunted our most intimate moments. Lying in her bed, in her starkly beautiful penthouse with its panoramic city views, I would sometimes wonder if I was just another of her charity cases, a project to be managed and perfected. My own insecurities, my beige life before her, rose up like specters, whispering that I didn't belong in her world, that this was a temporary fantasy. She sensed it. One night, as we lay entwined in the afterglow, my head on her chest, she traced the line of my spine with a feather-light touch. "You're pulling away," she whispered into the darkness, her voice raw. "Even when you're here, a part of you retreats. Tell me what you're afraid of." I couldn't give voice to the fears. To say them would make them real. So I just shook my head and kissed her, pouring all my uncertainty and desperate love into the physical connection. Our lovemaking became a language for everything we couldn't articulate, a frantic, beautiful attempt to bridge the gap my doubts were creating. She would guide my hands over her body, a silent plea for me to trust her, to trust this. Right there, her body would whisper and I would follow, losing myself in the sensation, the walls around my heart crumbling under her touch, only to rebuild themselves by morning. Underscore 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 underscore. The crisis broke on a Tuesday. An anonymous email sent to the entire board and a select group of major donors, complete with photos. Us kissing in her office, the city lights a glittering backdrop. Us holding hands as we walked through a park on a Sunday morning, thinking we were safe, anonymous. The images were grainy but unmistakable. I found out when my phone exploded with messages. By the time I got to the office, it was in an uproar. She was locked in her office with the board chairman, her face through the glass wall a terrifying mask of calm fury. I was asked to go home, a polite, cold dismissal that felt like a physical blow. I spent the day in a numb haze, staring at the walls of my apartment, waiting for her call, her text, anything. The silence was deafening. The news outlets, ever hungry for a society scandal, had picked it up. Philanthropist's private pitfall. A question of foundation ethics. My world was collapsing. When she finally showed up at my door that evening, she looked hollowed out. The board had given her an ultimatum. Let me go publicly and label it an unfortunate lapse in judgment, or they would vote to remove her. Her life's work, the foundation she had built from the ground up, was hanging in the balance. I can't do it, Clara, she said, her voice stripped of all its usual power. I can't stand up there and deny you. Deny this. She gestured between us, her hand trembling. But the foundation, I stammered, the words sticking in my throat. To hell with the foundation. The outburst was sudden, fierce, her eyes blazing with a pain I had never seen. It's a monument. You're the life within it. I spent my life building walls to protect myself from being hurt, from feeling powerless. And you walked in and made a home in the ruins of my defenses. Just a quick pause. If you're enjoying this, hit that subscribe button and stay with us here on Sapphic Tales. She crossed the room and took my face in her hands. I love you, she said, the words simple, direct, and utterly devastating. I should have said it 100 times before now. I love you, and I am not letting you go. Let them vote. Let them take it all. It's just money. It's just a name on a building. You are everything. It was the confession I hadn't realized I was waiting for. The final piece of the puzzle sliding into place. In risking everything, her reputation, her legacy, to protect what we had, she was finally, fully, the philanthropist of my heart. She wasn't saving me. She was choosing me. And in that choice, she gave me a worth I had never been able to find in myself. If it kept you hooked, subscribe now to Sapphic Tales so you never miss the next. ________________________ She didn't lose the foundation. The board, perhaps shamed by her unwavering public stance, perhaps recognizing the unique value of her leadership, did not vote her out. The scandal, without fuel for its fire, eventually died down. But something fundamental had shifted. Isabella stepped back from the day-to-day operations, promoting a capable COO and focusing her energy on the projects that truly ignited her passion. She said she was tired of managing a machine and wanted to get back to the heart of the work. I resigned from my position. It was my choice. I couldn't be her assistant anymore. I found a new job at a smaller, grassroots nonprofit, one where I could build my own legacy, free from her shadow, yet inspired by her example. Now, I am no longer her employee. I am her partner. We live in a different apartment, one we chose together, filled with light and the collected memories of our shared life. The third kiss, the one that feels like a promise, happens every morning when we wake up. The fourth, a quick, smiling press of lips, happens over the kitchen counter as we rush out to our separate days. The fifth and every one after, is a quiet reaffirmation before we fall asleep, limbs entwined, hearts synced. Our love was unexpected, a complication that rewrote the rules of both our lives. She was my boss, the philanthropist the world admired. But to me, she is the woman who chooses me every single day, who showed me that the greatest act of charity is not in grand gestures, but in the brave, quiet offering of one's own vulnerable heart. She risked her empire for my love, and in doing so, she built us a kingdom that no scandal can ever touch. Subscribe to Sapphic Tales for more stories where love is the bravest choice of all.